angry. Stop laughing, Takagi. You're still under arrest. Just surrender before we shoot you. Or you can surrender after we shoot you.
Hold on, I'm trying to put the pop filter on. Oh, come on. I hate doing videos, man. Okay, I think I got it. Alright, sweet. Here's a game I don't even know how to introduce, man. Wreckless, the Yakuza missions. Has anybody actually ever played this thing? Because it feels like this weird fever dream, except this weird fever dream actually exists. And the scariest thing is that it's exactly how I remember it. I remember this game looking incredibly impressive for the time, and it was also extremely frustrating. Mission failed. And that's exactly how it plays today. There's something funny about this game. There's a couple of different ports. The Xbox one, which I'm most familiar with and I believe to be the real version of the game, quote unquote. And then there's a PS2/GameCube port of this. And here's an example of why I believe video game preservation is so important and why I wish they would actually make some breakthroughs with the Xbox emulation, because it's basically non-existent right now when it comes to games like this. The Xbox port and the other ports of this game are extremely different from each other. I didn't actually know this before I started working on this video. I always kind of saw the PS2 and GameCube versions as watered down versions of this game whenever I saw some gameplay of it. It turns out the porting/development of this game was completely handed off to a team called Stealth Studios, who basically recoded this entire game for these two platforms. You'll notice that the first mission of this game starts off completely different from these two platforms. Also worth mentioning is that all the cutscenes that are in the PS2/GameCube version are just pre-rendered Xbox videos that were ported over to these versions. In the Xbox version, I believe they're actually running in real time. Due to this, if you played the original Xbox version, this can be a little jarring when you start getting into these levels because they don't really start out how the cutscenes leave it.
No! My pudding! I'm gonna get you for this.
Demolish the Yakuza car.
Also, the list in which you do the missions on the Stealth Studios port of the game are in a completely different order than the Xbox version, as well as the game just playing completely different, but we'll get to that in a minute. I just wanted to preface this video by explaining that there's two completely different versions of this game, and I really didn't even know that until I actually looked into it. So on the Xbox version, the first thing that you'll probably notice, other than the resolution being extremely low, is that the visuals are actually very impressive for the time, resolution aside. The reason this game might be looking so blurry to you right now is because unfortunately that's the only way I could get it to display through my capture device. I actually had to deny it trying to run the game in a higher resolution in the Xbox's menu, because that would immediately just give it a jumbled up screen that just wouldn't display anything.
Hold on a sec. I'm checking out the goods.
So we're probably stuck just kind of running this thing at like 240p, unfortunately. Ironically, this is the best looking version of the game, but you're going to be playing it at the lowest resolution out of all of the ports because there's really no good way to emulate it at the time of making this video anyways. But when you consider this game came out in 2002, the visual effects are extremely impressive. There's a lot of destructible railings and telephone booths and signage and glass and stuff in these levels, which will cause flame sparks and particle effects to go flying every single time you crash into something. There's a really nice looking bloom effect over the entire map. The lighting is amazing. There's a nice specular lighting effect over the cars that you'll notice especially whenever you damage it. The car's damage models are decently detailed considering the game and when it came out. Entire doors, hoods, trunks, windows will just go flying off as you crash it throughout a level, which would all look fantastic if you were seeing this through a CRT. The mission structure is very similar throughout both games. They usually involve you just crashing and ramming into things. This is where the game gets a little hard to explain. It's like an arcade style game where usually your missions consist of destroying other cars to complete a mission or make your way through a platforming section of a level. The game kinda likes to teeter-totter in between destruction derby style game and platforming style game with a car twist. Ironically, I think the worst part of this game is the handling model of the cars in both of the versions of these games. Because see, on one hand it's fun. It's fun to crash into things and send the car flying. You feel like you're a bull in a china shop in the best way possible. There's a lot of times where I found myself really impressed that I was destroying all of this stuff and the frame rate was never really dropping. On the other hand, it's extremely hard to control. You'll notice in this gameplay, it looks like I can't drive worth a shit, and you would be right, because it's impossible to control these cars the way you want. because they never do what you think they're gonna do. Every single time you make an action in this game, no two ways will it play out the exact same way. You'll constantly find yourself hitting a little bump in the road and then turning in a direction you didn't mean to turn to at all, or trying to correct and it just being impossible to correct your steering. You'll constantly get hung up on little objects or send the car flying in ways you really didn't want it to. The GameCube and PS2 ports set out to improve the driving model by making this a completely arcadey style game, where absolutely nothing gets in your way of momentum and you just constantly can run into buildings but keep going at the exact same speed and you're kind of glued to the floor the entire time. This makes it feel a lot more arcadey, but also kind of takes out the punch that the game originally had. Crashing into stuff just isn't really satisfying at all to me in the PS2 and GameCube versions. Hitting traffic really doesn't feel impactful, and it's not fun to try to destroy other cars. But you can do some sick Tokyo drifting in the PS2 GameCube ports, so I feel like that's worth mentioning.
Deja vu.
The mission structure is very similar in both ports of the games, the Xbox version sometimes offering a variety of missions that the PS2 GameCube versions don't, seemingly because the game has completely different physics models. Also, in both versions of the games, there's unlockable cars that you can achieve in different ways. In the Xbox version, they actually hide the vehicles within the map and you have to go out of your way to tap the vehicles with your car and then complete the mission in the allotted time, which can be extremely hard. The game makes this habit of giving you just enough time to get things done, and if it gives you more than enough time, they take the time away. Like in this one underground tunnel sewer type of mission, you'll get to certain parts near the end of it where they'll just completely cut the time off. And if you crash the car, it'll reset to that exact point in time. So it was almost like the time in the beginning was a little bit pointless. Why put in the time limit if you got to achieve it in a certain amount of time that they're going to give you later on in the level anyways? The game's pretty challenging, but it also starts to feel unfair when you realize how bad the handling model is. Like I said, no two ways will play out the exact same way. Whenever you try to drive a car off a cliff, it'll react completely differently than the time you did before it. I took so many cheap L's on this because I just completely couldn't get the car moving in enough time. It would flip it upside down and I'd have to sit there and run down the time limit to wait for it to reset. And if that wasn't bad enough, a lot of these levels just completely take the piss. Like, oh, you just got all the way up this skyscraper? We're gonna put a hole in the floor that you don't expect for absolutely no reason but to screw you over. Yeah, have fun restarting that entire level because you screwed up 10 seconds of it, loser. Yeah, the level itself might take 5 minutes, but it'll actually end up taking you more like 30 or 40 minutes to actually do it right, hoping that everything goes right and the stars align for you to complete it. In the PS2 version, secret cars are unlocked by just doing certain achievements in the level. Each mission has a secondary mission, which may be something like destroy a certain amount of objects. It doesn't seem like they actually hide the secret cars in this level, which I kind of feel like is a turn for the worst. I don't really like that they did that. That was kind of a nice novelty of the Xbox version. But on the flip side, there's a lot more unlockable cars in the PS2 GameCube version. Like, they just decided to take all the pedestrian cars and allow you to play as them, which is kind of funny. But at the same time, it looks like they just took all of the assets that they were given from the Xbox version and just found a way to cram it all into this one and just kind of gave you more to do with it. I think there's a free roam mode in here. There's also split screen levels, which is cool. It was nice that they offered a lot of content to kind of make up for how bad the game is. Both games are kind of bad in a good way. Actually, the Xbox port is kind of bad in a good way. I would rather play that 1,000 times over than the PS2 versions just because I don't enjoy the driving model. The driving model isn't great in the Xbox version, but everything feels like it has weight to it. It's fun to kind of throw the cars around and throw them into traffic, and the PS2 GameCube version completely strips that out. Also, the game is just butt ugly in the PS2 GameCube versions. Let's be real here. Even upscaling this game to 4K doesn't look as good as playing the Xbox version in 240p in my opinion. All of those nice lighting effects and destruction models are completely gone. It kind of just looks like they copied and pasted the assets into a map with no lighting. Gone is the bloom, the nice lens flare effects on the tail light, and overall it just kind of starts to feel like a cheaper reworking of the game. But I will say, you can Midnight Club 2 the fuck out of pedestrians, which is awesome. I don't know why you couldn't do this in the Xbox version, but hey man, bonus points for that. Also, bonus points for the PS2 GameCube version for having a Miata in the unlockable cars, but I couldn't get it because I was really bad at this level. Yeah, one of these secondary objectives is to do something like destroy 600 objects, but it doesn't actually have a counter or anything to let you know how many objects you destroyed. So you're kind of just aimlessly shooting at the dark while trying to complete the objective. I got frustrated and just gave up on it. You may find yourself doing that a lot with this game. It's very frustrating, it's very repetitive, and it has no regard for your time. But on the Xbox version, it's very pretty, and it's a fun thing to kind of throw around a few minutes in. One of the best aspects of this game are the characters in it.
Good job, fellas. Excuse me, but why do we have to wear these suits?
I don't know, but...
Guys, it's okay. That's what spies wear. Suits.
Oh.
Unfortunately, there's only like 3 cutscenes to each scenario. There's an A and B scenario. One, you get to play as these 2 female police officers. In the second scenario, you play as these 2 undercover agent type of guys.
Today's target is the Yakuza's cash. Hold on a sec. I'm checking out the goods. What?
The goods?
No, I was, no.
Hubby-dubby, there's a cop right behind you.
Shut up! Get back to the car, Chang!
You're supposed to use my code name, ho.
I really love the quirky cutscenes, and I wish there would have been a lot more of this. If there was a lot more of that, I would have felt a little more comfortable boosting this game up in my personal score ratio. But there's just not a whole lot of that incentive to keep playing.
Oh, ladies, you two are awesome. But now I'm gonna have to ram you off the roof.
Or, you know, you could just shoot him. Completely missed opportunity there. I don't know if it was budget, but it feels like they just put most of the budget into the graphics into the Xbox version. It kind of just feels unfinished in some ways. The cars will just get stuck and they just don't handle great. I feel like they could have fleshed it out a little bit better, but I guess they did the best with what they had at the time. And there was obviously a good bit of passion put into making the second version of the game as best as it could be with more bonus features, but I just don't enjoy the way that game plays at all. But yeah, that's Yakuza, the Wreckless mission. If you're watching this video, do you have any memories of this game whatsoever? I'm really hoping some people come across this thing and are like, yeah, I put myself through the pain of playing this game as a child and I have no idea how I got through it.
Yeah, I'm here. You're not saying I look chubby in this, are you?
I really don't know how I beat some of these levels. They really test your patience.
Mission failed.
One fond memory I do have of this game is this was back before YouTube, before video guides, before any of that. You couldn't just get on your phone and look at how to beat a mission, and even today, a lot of people haven't really covered this game. If you go on YouTube, I couldn't find any way to unlock all of the secret cars. However, there's this text guide that came out in like 2002. It's on the GameSpot website, and it details every single mission, how to beat every single mission, and how to get every single unlockable car. And bless this guy for putting so much effort into this. I'm pretty sure this is the exact one that I used as a kid. Me and my dad went down to the library and we printed out like a 20-30 page guidebook, and this is what I used to get through the entire game and get all of the unlockables. And if it wasn't for that guide, I don't know if I would have done it as a kid, dude. That's the cool thing about the internet, and you can still go back to that guide and use it today while nobody else is covering the game. If you're gonna play this game, I definitely recommend going to that source if you need help. But yeah, that's my experience with Wreckless, the Yakuza missions. I hope you guys enjoyed my little story behind it. If you never played it, maybe you learned about something new. And if you enjoyed this, maybe go check out some of my other retrospectives. I got some pretty good videos, some pretty fire stuff on my channel. You could also support the Patreon if you want, you know. It's $1. You could throw me a bone like my boy Xdeed over there. And above everything else, hopefully I'll see you in the next one. It's Vincey. Later. How do you stop recording this?